of these days I'm going to remember about that. Base is dropped on a new round of soccer down here. And sooner or later, I'm going to remember to hide what is up on the screen before I start the show. Base is dropped. A new round of soccer down here. It's a power hour today. Power hour on your Thursday. Let's see. So the rundown of today is basically whatever you want, because that's what these power hours are all about. And anything's on the table. I know we'll talk about Champions League from yesterday. We'll talk about the activity from UCL Championship from yesterday, kind of gotten everything squared away for match week 34, and anything else that's on the table. We've got gossip, rumor, and innuendo. We have your viewing habits for today. So there's plenty to get into here in the hour, but as always, it is what you guys want to talk about, and we can take it down any road you want. Reminder, tomorrow, 9:05 start. With playoffs going on, Jarrett and I will go for the first half hour into the weekend whip around, patent pending, trademark coming. And we'll go over all 6 matches, even though 2 of them are on Monday. So we'll get into that. 9:30, our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring will hang out with us, and we'll go over the weekend that will be starting at 10 o'clock on tomorrow. For me, for those of you that are interested in the other versions of what's going on, the other football that I get to take part in, today at noon, it is a countdown to kickoff on GBB Sports on all of the platforms other than on air. So Hannah Gooden and I will take you through everything that's going on at noon. Then later tonight, starting at 6, it is going to be something really special that we're doing at GPB. It is flag football coverage. It's the 3rd year that we've had flag football as a part of our fabric and our framework, and so we're going to be broadcasting Clash of Champions on all of the GPB platforms other than on air. So it's on the .org, the app, Twitter, Twitch, I think, Facebook, all of that. And so it's going to be Clash of Champions for flag football. Morning, Bam. Good to see that you're back. I know that you've been looking at A-League material, and I know that I've been looking at all of the daily releases that I've been getting about what's going on in the AFL and all the managerial changes and things like that. So I'm keeping up to date with what's going on there in the AFL. But this morning for opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And there's your QR code for those of you watching. And I know that a lot of you who are watching right now probably think that that's a better look for me than having a QR code not on the screen. You think that that's probably an improvement for those of you watching on the video side of things, since the QR code is directly in front of my face when it's a solo shot like it is on Thursdays. So that's your QR code for our friends at Kickoff Coffee, Kickoff Coffee CO. You can follow them at kickoffcoffeeco.com. You can follow them on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. And if you use that QR code, you get 15% off. Morning, Airborne DJ. You get 15% off your purchase with everything going on at Kickoff Coffee. But once again, they in turn take 10% of the proceeds and roll them over into the youth game. So right there, right there is your QR code. Right there we go. No, what? I'm going to get my fingers to figure this stuff out. There we go. Yeah, there's the QR code. QR code right there for our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And I know, Nick. That's the thing. So that's your QR code. I always have problems trying to figure out what direction things are, and because I'm left-handed, and so I'm used to doing things a certain way. But yeah, that's your QR code. Once again, thanks to our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. A-League update from last weekend. Okay, I was going to say a swimming pool on the pitch. That's going to say literally. Central Coast Newcastle postponed, and Bam is posting the A-League results as he should. And update us on what's going on the Ukrainian Premier League too, because I need to keep an eye on that. But yesterday in Champions League, and this is our opening kickoff this morning. Yesterday in Champions League, we have been posed with a situation that we are one match away from possibly having. And it's really wild to think about it. But when you look at it, all of the machinations in the world, it almost feels like the Casablanca opening. all the gin joints in the world, you walked into mine. Barcelona right now is a match away from not making it into the knockout stages of the Champions League. Group C, Bayern Munich, they've won all 4 of their matches. They've only given up 2 goals in 4 matches. They've scored 13. Not a surprise that Bayern Munich is at the top of the table. Inter has won 2 of their 4. They're at 7 points. Barca has lost 2 of their 4. They're at 4. And we all kind of figured going in that Victoria Pilsen was going to be the team that the other 3 in the group would be marking their goal difference against to try to figure out who would race ahead of the others and get into the knockout stages. Barcelona right now, Inter next go round, and this is in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks' time on the 26th. If Inter knocks off Victoria Pilsen, which you would anticipate that they would, then Inter would be at 10 points and 3 wins. And then you would have the match to go. Barcelona is this close to not being in the knockout stages of the Champions League. For all of the machinations that have been done, all of the refinancing, all of the rejiggifying of all of their assets, all of the sell-offs, all of the elements that they thought they needed to do to raise capital so they could function as a club. And they are this close to not being in for a split infinitive, which would drive my mother crazy. My mother was an English major, so to have a split infinitive, I'm sure would drive her nuts. This close not to be in the the knockout stages of Champions League. You look at things that we always sit there and say that they're too big to fail. Barca might be that close to once again having to sit there and have their hand out and have to rearrange things and figure out what they're going to do and selling of assets to make ends meet and make player payroll and all these kinds of things. Barcelona is that close to getting bumped out of the group stage and heading for the Europa League, which I'm sure will be great. And we'll have the Europa League juice boxes here a little later on as well. But just the notion that they're that close to going into the Europa League and not having the financials that are given to you when you make the knockout stages of Champions League. It's just, you were in a troublesome group to begin with, but I know that a lot of folks maybe thought that Inter might be the one to stumble. But Barca right now, 1 win in their first 4. Inter gets a win. Barca heads to the Europa League. And, Victoria Pilsen, we figured once again that they would be the ones that would be really taken advantage of here in Group D. Kind of like Rangers in Group A, where Rangers have only scored 1 goal and they've given up 16. They've lost their first 4. And you look at, Celtic, who hasn't won. And I know that Jared at this point is probably going earmuffs. But Celtic has some work to do in their final 2 matches. But right now, I mean, you look at the ones that are really in trouble, and Barca is right there. Heading to Europa League. For those of you that didn't get the chance to see what happened yesterday in Champions League, Barca and Inter had a crazy 3-3 match. Barca needed to win that one, and it was all over the place. And it ended up as a 3-3 crazy nuts draw. And so that was you got that one. Bayer Leverkusen lost to Porto 3-0. Bayern Munich over Pilsen 4-2, which we figured. Liverpool 7 on Rangers. Remember, this one was 1-1 at one point. 7-1 Liverpool. I think they needed that one for just to kind of pop their collar a little bit and feel good. Marseille with a 2-0 win over Sporting. Spurs over Eintracht Frankfurt by the score of 3-2 at Spurs Stadium. Atletico Madrid and Club Brugge. That was a goalless draw. Napoli over Ajax by the score of 4-2. So that puts your standings this way. Looking at everything past match week 4. Group A, Napoli, they haven't lost a match. Then they are 3 points ahead of Liverpool, 12 points to 9. Ajax right now, 3 points. And Rangers has not, they haven't won a match. They've lost their first 4. Group B, Bruges is at 10 points. Porto is at 6. Atletico Madrid is at 4. Leverkusen is at 3. Those three clubs still have some wiggle room to try to figure out who's going to be the 2, the 3, and the 4 in Group B in 2 weeks. We talked about Group C. Group D, Spurs is at 7 points, and this entire group has a lot to play with here. Spurs at 7 points. Marseille is at 6. Sporting is at 6. They are behind on goal difference. Marseille and Sporting have identical records at 2-0-2. Eintracht Frankfurt at 4 points. So that one is still in debate. All of Group D is still in play. Same for Group E. Chelsea, 7 points. Salzburg at 6 after having drawn 3 of their last 4. AC Milan and Dinamo Zagreb have the same record of 1-1-2, but AC Milan have scored more goals. And so right now they are in the Europa League spot with Zagreb. You're looking at we're talking Champions League, Rack. Talking about Champions League right now. Real Madrid is at 10 points. Leipzig is at 6. Shakhtar Donetsk is at 5. And they can still make their way in if they get some if they have things fall their way in the last 2 matches. And then Celtic is at 1 point, having scored 2, given up 9. That's where Group F is. Group G, Manchester City is at 10 points. The red card and the draw with Copenhagen gave Copenhagen their 2nd point in the group. But Manchester City right now, Dortmund right now. Manchester City next time out is going to be going up against Dortmund in 2 weeks. So we'll keep an eye on that one. That one's on next the Tuesday the 25th. So we'll keep an eye on that one at the beginning of match week 5. And then Sevilla and Copenhagen right now, still identical record, but Sevilla has scored more goals. They have a better goal difference. So Sevilla right now is in the Europa League spot in Group H. Paris, PSG, and Benfica, both at 2-2-0, both at 8 points. And so you have, this is probably the other surprise, PSG and Benfica at 8 points at 1-2. Juve and Maccabi Haifa right now, 3 points, 1-0-3. And Juve is in the Europa League spot only on goal difference. So that's some really wild stuff. You look at that one. So Group H with Juve in 3rd. And I know that there's been a lot of talk about keeping a coach employed at Juve. But Juve and Maccabi Haifa battling it out for the next go-round. But Maccabi Haifa has to go to the Parc de France next time out on the 25th, as I look around my drink this morning. So Maccabi Haifa's got a tall order in match week 5. Juve goes to Benfica in match week 5. So that's your opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Let me see if I can get it right the second time. For those watching on Twitch, that's your QR code. So I'll just go like this. There we go. So how about that? There it is. So I'll look this way around the QR code, and everybody can sit there and look at the QR code in and of itself. So there's your improvement of the photo. Yeah, I know, Rack. It's fancy, but I'm still having problems trying to figure out where my face goes and where the fingers go, so I can point at the QR code and make sure that everybody gets to see it. So yeah, that's your QR code for those of you watching on Twitch, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And you can follow along once again on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off of your coffee, and they in turn take 10% of the proceeds and invest them into the youth game. So very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee. Yes, yeah, I'm a QR head. Exactly. So there you go. So that's your opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. When we get into all of the other activity for today, we'll get into juice boxes in just a little bit and viewing habits. Also, yesterday it was good to catch up with Dylan Butler to get his thoughts on the playoffs coming up. And this is the other thing that I wanted to bring up first and foremost in the first half hour this morning, is that, and I want to get the quotes correct also. NYC and Miami. And this one, we finally, at least I think finally, we finally have a location for this match. And it is not where where we think it is, where we thought it was going to be. Uh, Phil Neville, not knowing where the playoff game against NYC was going to be held, because it was going to be in Red Bull Arena, then it was going to be in Citi Field, and they were trying to figure out, where it could be, what it could be, and how they could pull it off. Yesterday, it was announced that the match was going from Red Bull Arena to Citi Field. And you're doing this on a Wednesday leading into a playoff weekend, basically. Phil Neville said this leading into the discussion for the match. He says, and this is from Michelle Kaufman down at the Miami Herald, quote, "Cannot book our hotel travel, can't let supporters know this is not a preseason scrimmage, it's a playoff game. In 4 years, the World Cup is coming to this country, can't comprehend the delay." And that was at about 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon. And so that was Phil Neville. And frankly, he's not wrong. I don't think he's wrong. I really don't. When you sit there and you say something and then you're trying to, bam, we'll get into that in just a second. When you are a club and you have an assigned venue, then all of a sudden you want to sit there because the baseball team that was associated with your secondary venue, it becomes available. It's like if you're a rock group and you're playing at a venue out in the suburbs of a main city, and then all of a sudden, for one reason or another, a venue downtown becomes available, and then you just decide with Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days in between the time that you want to, or 5 at the time, that you want to announce, hey, we're changing our venue. How would you feel if you were a patron of that home team in the first place, and you had already decided to spend some time out in Harrison, New Jersey, and you're going, okay, I'll tell you what, we're going to have our game here. Then the fans for NYCFC that have already decided, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to spend our time. We're going to spend our money. We're going to go all the way out to Harrison, New Jersey, because that's where it is. Then you're told 5 days away from the match, oh, no. What we're going to do is we're going to have it at Citi Field in Queens. And, we're going to go from New Jersey to Queens. That, to me, it's ridiculous that you have something like this going on. Yeah, Rack, it is flipping ridiculous. Think about what you're saying to your own fans, much less what you're saying to the opposition. For the opposition, frankly, it's easier to fly into the airport now. At least you now know that you don't have to fly into Newark instead of flying into the airport that is actually in Queens, and that when you walk out the front door, you can see Citi Field off to your left. But the notion, not quite, Rack. It's kind of like saying, actually, tell you what, let me get the distances squared away here. So let me go on the Google, and we'll go to Google Maps. So here's what we'll do. We'll do Google Maps, and we'll go from Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey, on Cape May Street, and we'll get directions to Citi Field in Flushing, Queens. So, I'm not going to go through each and every direction. I just want to see how many miles it is from one to the other. Okay, so Citi Field, Seaver Way, Queens, New York. All right, so we're going from Cape May Street. You're talking 30 miles. It is a 30-mile difference, and right now it takes an hour. You're moving something from, say, okay, so I think I've got it figured out. And back me up here, Twitch Pitch. It's like saying that you've booked a concert at Gwinnett Center, at Gwinnett Arena, and moving it downtown. You've moved your event from Gwinnett Arena to downtown Atlanta. That's what you've done. Basically a 30-mile move. But the notion, yeah. So it's an right now, like I said, as we're talking, it's an hour. So since we're a morning show, it's an hour drive from Red Bull Arena to Citi Field. But to me, it's more the principle of the thing, where you sit there and you lay out a venue. Your fans have already they've already laid out their travel plans. They're already going. They're already saying, okay, here we've got our tickets. We're going. Here's where we're sitting. We've got it all squared away. And then your club decides with 4.5, 5 days in between, we're going to switch. I don't even want to know about the headaches for the fans that have already decided that they're going to sit there. How does a ticket translate? I'm sure that you've already had to buy your parking. You've already had to buy your tickets for everything at Red Bull Arena to get everything squared away. And so now what you're telling your fans is, no, we're going to Queens now. How does all of this compute? And if you know, and seriously, I'd love to know if you have any competition, any fans, any friends of yours, any contacts that have to do with NYC, and you catch up with them over the next handful of days before the match on Monday. I want to know how this translates out. NYCFC, for me, does not get a tip of the hat for moving it back to a previous venue and moving it out of Red Bull Arena just because the Mets are no longer in the playoffs. For me, lock in your venue, be professional about it. Lock in your venue, and that's your venue. You've locked in Red Bull Arena. And now how do you think Red Bull, the folks that manage Red Bull Arena are sitting there saying, it's like, okay, yeah, we're having, you tell you what, you can't have our venue anymore. It's like being stood up on a date. Why would you want to go out with that? Why would you want to go out with that other person now? You've stood them up. It's like, yeah, we made all these arrangements and all this kind of stuff. I sincerely hope that the City Football Group is still having to pay rent on the building for that one night, or however many, whatever the rent structure is, instead of like we're not coming now. It's you've rented a venue for a party and now you're standing them up. NYC gets no cookie here for moving it to Queens. They really don't. From a fan perspective, I'd be pissed. From a Red Bull Arena perspective, I'd be concerned. I mean, it does go back to the larger issue that we've been talking about with Dylan when he's been on the show about NYCFC having their own venue, the Yankees. Four-card, I think they just wanted to move it so it wouldn't be in Red Bull Arena. They didn't want it to be a home game for an NYCFC club to be in New Jersey. And so they moved it to a venue where they've been before. They just wanted it to be in a more NYC-ish kind of a place and not at Red Bull Arena. So the notion that you want to just move something 5 days before an event, and NYC sent out an email to all of their fans and supporters. Yeah, it is. It is just dumb. I mean, you've got a venue. Lock in your venue. Lock it there. And, for me, it's why. I know the why, and it's more of a rhetorical question, but the notion that 5 days before a game, you want to move it, and that Major League Soccer on some level was cool with it. It's like, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, 5 days before, you go ahead and move. That's cool. And it's just, yeah. And to Nick's, to your point, Red Bull Arena is soccer specific. You're moving it out of a soccer specific stadium and you're moving it to another baseball stadium that really isn't a whole lot better than being at Yankee Stadium, frankly. Let me check once again using the Google machine. Because, I mean, we have seen matches at Citi Field, for those of us here in the Southeast. Looking at an article from, say, 2019. They're pushing for, and this is back in 2019 when Toronto FC moved there because they were the traveling minstrels. They're pushing for 70 and 110. The stands are a lot closer, so there's more of an environment. but they were pushing for 70 and 110, 70 feet wide, 70 meters wide, 110 meters long. So that's what they were pushing for. I don't have my translator here in front of me, but still, the notion that 5 days before a game, you want to change your venue and just have all of the headaches that are associated with it, and all of the stuff, all of the business headaches that you're going to leave behind. And to the point that was made by you, Nix, you're leaving a soccer-specific stadium, going to a baseball stadium, whose dimensions ain't all that great. Because, I mean, remember, they kind of had to push the soccer field away from the baselines a little bit. But for me, I look at Major League Soccer and it's disappointing. I look at NYCFC, it's disappointing. Yeah, I know, Bam. It's surprised they didn't try to move it to the Etihad at this point. But it's just the fact that, and I'm, like I said, I'm in Coach Neville's court here. I'm with him. I am absolutely with him here, that you're looking at this kind of a thing 5 days before and you change a venue. For me, it's more the principle of the thing that you went ahead and did it instead of sticking to your original plan, having your fans have one pathway, having everything laid out. And I understood what Coach Neville said, but for me, the idea of the change is what gets to me. So that's where it is for me. Yeah, for me, it's a lot easier to fly into an airport in Flushing, Queens, and stare at Citi Field than it would be to fly in Newark or fly in JFK and then have to work my way out to Harrison. I get that. But for me, it's the more principle of the thing when it comes to this kind of a thought in a playoff scenario. You've got a venue booked 5 days before you change your mind and the league let you do it. That, to me, it's just you shake your head over stuff like this. Let me go into Twitch Pitch and see what you guys were saying about it. Bam, we will get into the A-League tackle that you've posted in the Twitch Pitch, and we'll let folks know what everybody thinks about that particular moment. Yeah, until NYCFC gets a stadium, kick them out of the league. You can't do that. It's the number one media market in the country, Bam. You have to let that go. Yes, they need their own stadium. It's something we've been talking about for years here on the show. They need their own stadium, and you hope that they're close. You hope it's in Queens. You hope it's near Citi Field. Like I said, when we've had Dylan on the show, he has mentioned places where you could actually have it in Queens and have it be a part of a development that would actually work in Queens. It is embarrassing. It is embarrassing, Tom. It really is. Fine them monthly until they have a plan in place. It should have been resolved years ago. It really should have been. But hopefully we are getting closer to that kind of a resolution. And I mean, honestly, for me, to be honest, Tom, I would think about maybe fining them. But I know that the league wouldn't do it. But it's like you double clutched on a venue. And in your mind, it might be a more New Yorkish venue than a New Jersey venue, but you double clutched on a venue. I hope that you have to pay some kind of a penalty to Red Bull Arena for ducking out of a date. That I hope, and then I hope that they have to pay full price for having to duck out, and that they think twice about doing something like this in the future. Let's see. The airport you fly into is different. Nick's hotels would be different, awful for fans, especially away fans. Yeah, because and Nick's, to your point, and to the point that we were thinking about with the team, you're probably flying into Newark or you're flying into JFK, and you're working your way east instead of flying into LaGuardia, walking out the door, taking an Uber, and you're right there. I mean, it's just like, come on. Rack knows a guy from Pennsylvania to NYCFC games, so whether it is one or the other, does it make a difference for him? That's a question. So ask your buddy about that if he's going to the match. If he's going to the match, Rack, find out what's going on. Equidistant for the fan base, not the inconvenience, but the disrespect to the club and supporters. That's true. Emilio, you got that. Yeah. For me, it's like and it's a point that I made. It's like you had one thing, the fans were going in one direction, and all of a sudden 5 days before, it's like, no, we're going over here. And so it's disjointed and it's disappointing. Rack to you, it's unfair. The competition on top of the idiocy for the fans to move tickets. I didn't even think of that. Bam thinks that NYC should have lost hosting rights for the playoffs. They weren't going to in the eyes of the league, but it's yeah. You've got a venue. Stick to your venue. Don't do silly stuff like this. That was the biggest thing. Morning forecard. You can't. Yeah, and Nick's probably to your point. Like we've seen in other sports and other places, sometimes you've lost your ability to host at a home site, so then it goes to the other team. Now an away match in Florida. And when Dylan comes back in, that's a good question, Emilio. So when Dylan comes back in, where's the fan base distributed? Queens is easier than Harrison always will be. But yeah, it's just for me, once again, it's like you had a venue, you had an idea, and then you're kind of sitting there waiting. Okay, are the Mets going to lose? Mets going to lose? Mets going to lose? Okay, they lost. Let's go over here and try and. No, it's just for me, it's bad business. Because you sit there and you've had this relationship with Red Bull Arena in the past, and now you're like, nah, it's like we're cool. I hope Red Bull charges them 100% for the rent for that date, and I hope that they get it, and I hope they get interest. Just the same. Red Bulls won't play them until the conference final, and let's see. Get your own stadium, problem solved, Emilio. Yes, and Five Stripe after the Braves won last night over Philly. Mets suck, by the way. Yes. Surprised there weren't any more comments like this one that popped into the timeline because of all of the Braves fans that we have here in the timeline. But yeah, Mets suck. Let's see. At Rack, at what point is it clear that even when NYCFC wins, they still have no fans, and MLS grows a pair and tells NYCFC to suck it up? I think, Rack, morning, Sharif. I think if there was some stability in their lives, like if they knew that they had one house to go to, I think they'd be okay. If they just had like one place, and it was a soccer place, and it wasn't a baseball place, and there wasn't the anticipation of going to a baseball stadium or going to another baseball stadium or having to go across the river to New Jersey to play. Rack remembers NYC fans protesting the first time they moved stuff from Citi Field to Red Bull Arena. Yeah, because it's New Jersey. And this is the one thing for me. When you talk about those two teams, you're looking at, and Five Stripe, we'll get to that in a second. When you're looking at NYC fans, it's like, okay, you play at Yankee Stadium, that's where you are, and we could make a comment about your championship banner, but we won't. Red Bull right now, it's if you go back into the iterations of their name, it's New York, New Jersey Red Bulls. They've needed to embrace their New Jerseyness from the beginning. Red Bull needs to embrace their New Jersey and bury their marketing into that side of the river. NYCFC needs to focus on the west side of the river. They need to focus on getting that stadium in Queens, hopefully, or wherever they are. Focus there. And now you can understand why fans get mad when you're doing something in New Jersey, because you're not NJFC, or because not New Jersey City, but yeah, you're not NJFC, you're NYCFC. And so if I was someone who was prideful about being from NYC and a fan of the Blues, then I'd be mad as hell about having to go all the way to New Jersey, first and foremost, because A, it's New Jersey, and B, why am I going to New Jersey for something that's mine that's in New York? And so it's just all of that. Swapping over to Five Stripe. Your rival stadium, I'd be angry too. Yeah, and that's the other part. You're playing in your rival's barn in a soccer-specific stadium across the river in New Jersey for a playoff game, instead of trying to figure something out. And it goes back to the stadium issue. But yeah, you didn't have a choice because the Mets and the Yankees were still in the postseason, and then you decide when the Mets lose because they can't get their way out of a first round of a playoff series, that you're going to go back to the west side of the river. You had a plan. You should have stuck to the plan, because you had an agreement. You had an agreement with someone. You shook their hand. It's like, yeah, we're going to come here and play. We're going to pay you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Like I said, I hope Red Bull Arena sits there and sticks them with a bill, and they get 100% plus interest because of what they've done. Rack. But it just begs the question of why they did it in the first place. It's like NYCFC's a minor league kickball team level professionalism on this thing, and that to me, from a business standpoint, that to me is the other part of this. It's like, like I said, you have a handshake agreement. What makes other future possible business arrangements and other businesses? And I mean, if I'm another business along that same line, I'm looking at that going, I don't know. I mean, would Citi Field get screwed possibly in the future? I mean, theoretically, if you're in another venue and it's like, okay, yeah, we'll go here, but now we'll go back to Yankee Stadium for one reason or another. Man, it's just, you sit there, you just shake your head about it. But yeah, and it is, I'd be mad too. Also silly to keep moving around. Emilia with a question. NYC have what as a season ticket base? Move to Queens where you get a new additional fan base not needing to drive. Let me see if I can find the season ticket numbers for NYC now that we're thinking about it. And NYC season ticket numbers. Let me see if that actually exists. Yes, I did mean that. Okay. Let's see. Ticket policy, price decodes. Back in 2019, season tickets, NYC season ticket holder numbers. I wouldn't anticipate that it's a whole lot. Okay, so I'm just getting like stuff from NYC. So if anybody sits there and finds how many season tickets, if anybody knows how many season ticket packages that NYC has, let me phrase it as a question. Let me see if Google does it that way. Season ticket holders does NYCFC have? Sorry, I'm troubleshooting live on the air. NYCFC. Okay, so they had 14,000 in their inaugural season back in 2014. That doesn't help me now. Okay, so if you say 10,000, Emilio is probably a safe bet. But so let me see if let me do one more thing. MLS season ticket numbers. See if that will help. Okay, so here we go. This is from Reddit, so take it for what it is. NYC is not listed in the top 15. Yes, I'm going to continue as that. So, looks like none of the numbers are, so 12,000 for the Revs, it looks like. And NYC probably won't be available. Okay, so once again, this is from Reddit, and this is back in February, so take it for what it's worth. Teams stopped reporting attendance numbers for home games last season. If you can find attendance, I'd estimate our season ticket count is like 80% of that number. So whatever your numbers are at NYC, take 80% of that, and that would be your season ticket number. So yeah, Emilio, you're probably in the ballpark of that 10,000. So yeah, it's definitely you need to move to Queens. NYCFC fans mock us for sharing the stadium with the Falcons. Yeah, but once again, you're looking at, you're looking at a stadium that was built multi-purpose. Yeah, you're looking at a multi-purpose built stadium that had soccer in mind from the beginning at Mercedes-Benz, and that's been a part of the deal. They were equal partners, absolutely equal partners this whole time. And NYC, when they came in, it's like they needed to have their own venue. And so now you're seeing, once again, the chickens come back to roost. Let's see. Burned. Pitch for the U17 World Cup game yesterday looked real narrow, which was weird because the stadium was clearly huge. Realized it was a cricket stadium. Soccer needs to be in soccer stadiums. Absolutely right. It does. And, I was watching a little bit of the U17s as well. And I'm glad that a country like India is getting the chance to showcase the sport at that level. I know that the match against the United States was kind of a long slog for them. I think it was 8-0 in that one. But yeah, it was in a cricket stadium. And it does. Soccer needs to be in soccer stadia. And when you go to a place like Yankee Stadium, where it's not legitimately, it's not a legitimate soccer stadium, and you sit there and you have to fudge numbers. Oh, it's regulation. No, it's not. Peter Vermes walked it off, and he said that he was like, it was not. Back to the attendance, Emilio. It has to be less than their average attendance. Don't spend that much time. Knicks lash a couple of garbage barges together in the Hudson, build a pitch. Yeah, and then there's the gag about it possibly, having attendance be either the same or close. I mean, you saw what they did with Liberty National Golf Course right there on the peninsula. Very, very cool stuff in New Jersey. But yeah, so I was obviously fired up this morning about the venue change for just because you could and you wanted to. It's not fair to the fans of NYC. Yes, all 36 of them. I don't care how many fans you have. It's still not fair to them. The fact that you laid something out, you got your travel plans all squared away, and then, oh, no, we're moving it 30 miles away to Queens. So you hope it's not an inconvenience. I know it's going to be an inconvenience. I want to know how your tickets translate from one arena to the other. I want to know how, is the club going to sit there and email you and go, okay, here's the deal. Here's your translated ticket. Here's your translated ticket from where you were sitting at Red Bull Arena. You're going to be halfway up the third base line at Citi Field. Can't wait to see how that happens. I cannot wait to see what that looks like. So, found so okay. So, 16,000 as of 2018. Okay, cool. Yeah. So, I mean, it's there, but you wonder, A, how many of them are going, and B, how many of them are going to be affected when it comes to this whole thing. And legitimately, like I said, I look at the ticket translation and I just look at the fans, and I want to know how many tickets were sold to the game at Red Bull. I want to know how many folks show up for the game at Citi Field. Those are the two things for me. So, Coach Neville wasn't wrong when he came up and he was expressing his ire about the venue change 5 days before an actual event. You're in the MLS Cup playoffs. Do better. Let's see. We've got, about 15 minutes. So whatever's on your mind, go ahead and put it in the Twitch pitch, and we'll talk about it as we go. I want to go over gossip, rumor, and innuendo, and I want to go over juice boxes before we go and where you can watch things. So we'll get into all of that. So gossip, rumor, and innuendo for today. It is AC Milan preparing to open talks about a new deal with Rafael Leao. Hope to agree to terms before the World Cup starts in November. Chelsea have been linked with Leao following the situation closely. That's from Gazzetta dello Sport. AC Milan also interested in Ruben Loftus-Cheek, whose contract runs out in 2024. Chelsea close to a deal to appoint Southampton's head of senior recruitment, Joe Shields, as their director of recruitment. Have you seen where Southampton is in the standings? I know that that's an easy dig, but it's just the first thing that popped into my head. Chelsea also interested in recruiting Stuart Webber as sporting director. Has been in the same role at Norwich since 2017, helped them to 2 championship titles. And he's also had to do it under financial constraints. So it would be interesting to see what Stuart Webber will look like if he is in that position with a budget. So we'll see what happens there. Mamadou Fall's price went up after scoring yesterday in Villarreal B's 2-2 draw. No question. Real Madrid not interested in signing Kylian Mbappe from PSG, despite reports he's not happy at PSG. That came from Marca. Manchester City told a number of clubs, including Bayern and Inter, who have inquired about Nathan Ake, they will not sell him in January. Liverpool monitoring Real Betis and Argentina midfielder Guido Rodriguez, 24, before the transfer window. Glazer family not interested in selling Manchester United, but would consider it if an offer was made of in excess of $10 billion. 902 million pounds. Brentford have opened talks about a new contract with Ivan Toney, who has links with Tottenham, as they should. Leeds set to offer Jack Harrison an improved deal, attracted interest from Newcastle in the summer. Wolves in advanced negotiations with former Olympiacos boss Pedro Martins, who recently failed to agree to a deal to become Hull City manager as the successor to Bruno Lage. Remember yesterday, Julian Lopetegui regrettably said that he could not take the job. They've also interviewed ex-player and former Watford boss Rob Edwards for the manager's post. Chelsea and England right back Reece James, hopeful that the knee injury he suffered not too serious following an initial assessment. Tottenham want to make Dejan Kulusevski's loan permanent, joined in January on an 18-month loan from Juve. Lazio boss Maurizio Sarri is unhappy with the reports linking Sergei Milinkovic-Savic with a move to Juve. Sorry, that was a very quick Maurizio Sarri impression. West Brom interested in speaking to Millwall boss Gary Rowett about their vacant manager's position after sacking Steve Bruce. West Brom is in a world of hurt right now at the bottom of the championship. Bam, quickly, Melbourne and Western Sydney this weekend, A-League game to watch. WSW sold out the away bay 4:45 a.m. kick on Saturday for us. Thank you. All right, so let's see if there's any other gossip, rumor, innuendo. Take a peek at the papers. And see if there is anything there on the day. Let's see. The Times says, Erling Haaland would be allowed to leave Manchester in 2 years if a foreign club pays his €200 million release clause. Kevin De Bruyne has said the Manchester City surging clear of Liverpool this season because they're a more controlled and consistent team than their up-and-down rivals. EFL's been warned attendances in lower league matches could be severely hit if they scrap the traditional Saturday 3 p.m. TV blackout. Newcastle officials prepared to meet with the club's supporters to discuss renaming St. James Park. That, to me, means a sponsor, so we'll keep an eye on that. Let's see. Daily Star, Chelsea reportedly interested into looking into terminating the contract of Dennis Zakaria just 2 months after his arrival from Juve. Avoiding the 3 and the 4 letter paper. PSG and the Daily Telegraph have been accused of hiring a digital agency to carry out smear campaigns against Kylian Mbappe. We'll keep an eye on that. And then the Scottish Sun, Rangers star Leon King attracting interest from 3 Premier League giants, according to a report. Let's see. Also, Everton is in talks. Okay, so DJ, let me ask you this. Frank Lampard has confirmed Everton are in talks with Alex Iwobi about extending his contract with the club. Contract expires in summer of 2024. Impressed under the manager since being moved to a central midfield role. I know that Kevin Thelwell, director of football, speaking with Alex's people on that front, said Frank Lampard will see how that one develops. What do you think? Bayern reportedly willing to splash out more than £88 million to secure Harry Kane. So we'll see what happens there. Also, Frank Lampard paid tribute to Richarlison's impact at Everton ahead of their meeting with his old club on Saturday. Nothing more than he's a good lad. We wish him well. We'll shake hands and all the things. He left with dignity, with his head held high. He gave everything for his club. So those are the quick notes on Everton. PSG obviously have denied the reports that they created the fake social media accounts to attack Kylian Mbappe. French online newspaper Mediapart says the club used a communications agency to create fake social media accounts to attack football figures, including Mbappe. Club responded to claims saying they totally deny the claims by Mediapart. Club has never contracted with an agency to undermine any person or institution. Senior source at the club added, "Do you really think we hired an agency to attack our own players? Above all, Mbappe spent the entirety of his career charming him and encouraging him to stay, including most recently getting President Macron involved. But at the same time, we've been trolling him. It's a joke. There was an agency that was doing things of its own accord. Then that's for them to answer, and we will investigate. But absolutely nothing has been done at the direction of the club." Thomas Tuchel, apparently, interested in taking over from Gareth Southgate as England manager after the World Cup, according to the Telegraph. Doubts over how long Southgate will remain in charge after 6 matches without a win. Tuchel's not had a job since being sacked in September. Iwobi's been transformed under Lampard. Has been really good. Not something you'd expect having seen him previously, so good on him. So Airborne DJ gives a thumbs up on Iwobi. Let's see. Jorginho's priorities to extend his Chelsea contract, according to his agent, Joao Santos, with his deal expected to expire at the end of the season. Interim boss Steve Davis is going to continue in charge this weekend against Nottingham Forest as Wolves continue to chase after the managers, which is who we were just discussing. Lazio wants £105 million for Milinkovic-Savic. If that goes down, 4 goals, 7 assists, 12 appearances for Lazio this season. All right, so let's get into the Viewing habits and the elements of today. Let's get into all of the matches, and I know that Europa League is going to be big today, so we'll get into that coming up here. Right now, obviously, you've got a lot of reserve league, lower division stuff, a lot of activity in Eastern Europe, in Asia, Middle East, North Africa, lower divisions in Europe right now going on. 12:45. We'll just go over the highlights because it's both Europa Conference League and Europa League going on. Go to Paramount Plus and go to 2 and we'll get into the specifics of who they have coming up in just a little bit. Besiktas here, big favorite at 12:45 at home against RFS. Fiorentina, larger favorite at home at 12:45 as Hearts comes to visit. Austria Vienna, Villarreal on the road's a -179. You've got Partizan and Cologne. Cologne's a road favorite at a +131. Apollon Nicosia and AZ Alkmaar. AZ Alkmaar a favorite on the road. Djurgården Ghent. Ghent's a favorite on the road at a +120. Cluj and Slavia Prague. Slavia Prague's a favorite at -106. Slovan Bratislava and Basel. Juice boxers don't care. They throw a blanket over it. Everybody's within the margin of error. Europa League, Betis and Roma. That's going to be an interesting one. Real Betis is favored at home at a +154. Feyenoord's a favorite at home against Midtjylland. Nantes and Freiburg. Freiburg's a -101. Bodo Glimt and Arsenal. Arsenal's a -217 on the road. Dynamo Kiev and Rennes. Rennes a +102 on the road. Fenerbahce a -133 on the road with Larnaca. Real Union is a favorite at home against Braga. Karabag. It has to be said that way. -132 at home against Olympiacos. Then you have Conference League at 3 o'clock. West Ham is playing. They're favored. Hapoel Beersheva is favored at home. Nice is a big favorite at home. Shamrock Rovers, an underdog at home to Molde. Sivasspor on the road out of Turkey. They are a favorite. Europa League, Ludogorets is a favorite at home. Union Berlin is a big favorite at home against Malmo. Our buddy Sheriff Tiraspol, big underdog, almost a +1100 as they go to Real Sociedad. Monaco a favorite on the road at -104. PSV a big favorite at home against Zurich. Manchester United, large favorite at home against Omonia out of Cyprus. Lazio a favorite at home against Sturm Graz. Ferencvaros and Red Star Belgrade. Juice boxers threw a blanket over that one. It's pretty much dead even. Vélez Sarsfield at 3:30 takes on Tijeras, and Vélez Sarsfield's a favorite at a +127. Copa Libertadores from the Femenil is starting at 4 o'clock. You've got Olimpia Asuncion and Always Ready, Defensor and Boca Juniors. Boca Juniors female side is a big favorite there. Argentina League play at 6 o'clock. Lanús is a favorite at home against Patronato. Godoy Cruz, a home dog as Argentinos Juniors comes to town. 6:15, Copa Libertadores. Corinthians, big favorite against Deportivo Cali. And Ferroviaria against Nanas is a favorite there as well. Also, Liga MX in the Liguilla at 8:06. Toluca favored slightly over Santos Laguna at a +156. 8:30, you have more in Argentina. Atletico Tucumán is a -112 hosting Rosario Central. Newell's Old Boys and Tigre are within the margin of error, both around +175. And your late night Liguilla, Tigres and Pachuca. Tigres a +139, and Pachuca is a +209. Viewing habits. So where can you watch all these things that we just talked about? We will get into that. And one other note out of Major League Soccer before we go, and anything else on your mind before we go. Thursday, you've got college soccer on the women's side, ACC Network doubleheader 6 and 8. B1G, you've got college soccer at 7 and 8. SEC Network has college soccer at 7. 2 has Europa League, Arsenal at 12:45, Manchester United at 3, and the Liga MX doubleheader at 7 and 10. Unimas is simulcasting the Manchester United match at 3 o'clock, and Toluca and Santos at 7. ACC Extra has women's soccer at 7. B1G has college women's soccer at 7. Flow has men's and women's soccer. Men have the one match at 8. Chicago State and Bowling Green, and women's soccer starting at 3 o'clock. SEC Plus, 2 matches in the SEC. ESPN Plus is all over it with men's and women's soccer, and La Liga Smart Bank, Ibiza and Ibars at 12:50. Paramount Plus has all your Europa League and Europa Conference League action. VIX has 2 matches in the Europa League. Roma at 12:45, Real Sociedad at 3, plus all of the Europa League and Europa Conference League action on your Saturday. One other thing also that I noticed, MLS, note on Major League Soccer. MLS attendance topped 10 million for the first time in league history. Obviously, and this is from our friends at Soccer America, boosted by the addition of a 28th team, Charlotte FC, which averaged 35,260. The league drew 10,011,578 fans for an average of 21,033 over 476 matches. Average attendance down 1.4% from the average of 21,330 in 2019, the last season pre-pandemic. All games played in full stadia, full capacity for the entire year. The record for average attendance in Major League Soccer, 22,106, that was set in 2017. Atlanta United again led in Major League Soccer attendance, an average of 47,116, down from the averages in 18 and 19, pulled in over 800,000 fans this season, Atlanta United did. First season at Geodis, Nashville averaged 27,554 to rank fourth in attendance. The only team among the top six headed to the postseason, which begins this weekend. MLS record 12 teams averaged more than 20,000 fans a match. Of Europe's 5 big leagues, only the Premier League and the Bundesliga have more teams with averages of more than 20,000 fans a game this season, and they had 18 teams each. Lower.com field in Columbus, Crew led all teams with an increase in attendance of 29.5% in 2022 compared to 2019. Other teams enjoying increases of more than 25%. Chicago at 28.6, basically 2 out of 7. And then New England, 26.8. 4 teams basically sold out every game at their soccer-specific stadium. LAFC, Austin FC, but once again, remember, Austin FC's capacity is 22,000. RSL and Minnesota United. RSL's attendance rebounded under new ownership, set a club record for consecutive sellouts, drawing capacity crowds for all 17 matches in Rio Tinto. Of the 15 teams, and we'll get to NYC in a little bit, so this is how the show turns into a circle. Of the 15 teams that saw a decrease in attendance, 7 had drops of more than 10%, contributing to the overall decrease of the 3.7% in average attendance among the 24 teams that played in 2019. Orlando City down 5,500 fans a game to average 17,261 for a decrease of 24.2%, down from averages of 32,000 and 32,800 and 31,300 for their first 2 seasons at the Citrus Bowl. In its second season at DRVP&K, Inter Miami was last in attendance with an average of 12,637, down from 13,847 last year. NYC, here's your turning the show into a circle. NYC averaged 17,180 for their 2022 MLS season. Their first 2 seasons at Yankee Stadium, average attendance 29,027.1. If you exclude 2020 and 2021, Red Bull's average of 17,002 fans is their lowest since Red Bull Arena opened 12 years ago. So here's the rundown of average attendance in Major League Soccer. Atlanta still far and away number 1 at 47,116. Charlotte, 35,260. Seattle, 33,607. Nashville at 27,5. Toronto at 25,4. Portland, 23,8. Galaxy at 22,8. Cincinnati at 22,4. LAFC at 22,089. New England, 21,221. Austin is at 20,738. Then looking at, we mentioned Orlando City, we mentioned NYC, mentioned Red Bulls. Down to the bottom, your bottom 6. DC at 16,256, just behind Vancouver. Chicago at 15,848 at Soldier Field. Montreal 15,769 at Stade Saputo. San Jose 15,260. Colorado 14,473, and we mentioned Inter Miami 12,637. And that includes attendance for a match against FC Cincinnati of 13,026 that was not counted in MLS's statistics. So we started the show talking about NYC. We end the show talking about NYC. So that's pretty wild stuff, but not necessarily a surprise. Once again, to recap, your Champions League, Barca once again on the brink of elimination. Bayern Munich, Napoli, and Bruges for the first time since the inaugural group stage in 91-92, all booked places in the last 16. And Xavi needed that victory yesterday, didn't get it, got a 3-3 draw against Inter. And now it is, looking at everybody else. That win next time out, that's going to be tough. Once again, you've got Inter, who will qualify with the league with Bayern if they beat Pilsen at home in 2 weeks. And we think we can pretty much safely say that's going to happen. Bayern reached the knockout phase for the 15th consecutive season with the 4-2 win there. Fastest hat trick ever for Mo Salah in the 7-1 win for Liverpool. So Salah came off the bench, 6-minute hat trick, breaking Gomis's record back in 2011. So that's what you're looking at there. Bruges had the goalless draw with Atletico Madrid. Simon Mignolet in net for Bruges now. For those of you who might have wondered where Simon Mignolet is, he's at Bruges, and he got them into the group stage. So right now, that's what you're looking at in Champions League. Barcelona's right on the edge, and it's not looking good. That'll do for a show for this morning. It's a power hour. So once again at noon on GPB Sports, if high school football is your thing, on the Facebook page, Hannah Gooden and I will go through the week that is and the week that was in high school football. Tonight, flag football, 6, 7, and 8 on all the GPB platforms. We'll be back at it normal in the morning, 9:05 start, and we will go through your weekend whip around, get you ready for the playoffs, and we will have Beyond Goals coming up at 9:30, and we'll take you through the rest of the weekend at 10 o'clock. So once again, thanks for hanging out with us and going through everything on yet another day here at SDH. Thank you for your Thursday thoughts, as always. And it's great to go deep dive into topics like we did this morning involving NYC and their situation and Barca and theirs. It's always fun to hang out with you guys. And thanks for being a part of the SDH family, as you always have been. So for yet another weekend, for another day in the can, I'm just John. Mucha platial. And since it is the end of the show, that means I get to do this.